floor and sold it for 64,000. And we thought, this is easy. We can do this every week. And of
It's that
course, we
first one
lost
that gets you.
money.
If you
Yeah,
make too much money on that first deal, you got
I
you're
know.
you're losing.
We lost money overconfidently on two of the next three deals. And we found out it wasn't quite as easy, but we still flipped 40, 50, 60 houses in the next several years, plus some waterfront lots at a lake. I built seven houses, and I learned something really important for your audience, Gabe. You guys might want to write this down. You shouldn't build a house if you don't know how to tighten your own doorknob. I'm just saying. So, but pivoted to commercial real estate in 2011 and tried to be a multifamily syndicator, wrote a humbly titled book called The Perfect Investment. And that was about multifamily. But around 2018, we realized, hey, it's not the perfect investment. And I started telling my audience on Bigger Pockets and other podcasts I was on that, hey, look, if you have to overpay, over leverage, and believe trees are going to grow to the sky, in other words, rents are going to keep going up 11.2% a year in Tucson forever, then you better believe it's not a perfect investment. So we pivoted and we started studying Warren Buffett and his principles, Charlie Munger, those guys, looking for intrinsic value. Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And we found out that there was more intrinsic value in mom and pop owned self storage and mobile home parks. And then years later, we added RV parks. And so we're not an operator, we're a fund manager. We're getting ready to launch our seventh and eighth funds, all diversified across multiple asset classes. And that brings us up to today.
Nice, man. I love it. So you are one of the few people who have left multifamily. Most people that I get on here, they say multifamily is their bread and butter, but you seem to think that's not there. It's a little bit overhyped, which makes sense to me because I've looked at multifamily deals and they're all trading at like five caps, and it never made sense in terms of like the return you'll get and what you have to underwrite in order to make the deal make sense. So that you
It's
kind of
true.
reached that conclusion and you were like, no, this is
Yeah.
not for me.
We invest in multifamily, but we love mobile home parks and self storage. And we could take the rest of the podcast, me telling you story after story of uncovering undervalued, undermanaged, poorly advertised self storage and mobile home parks that, we had one we bought on the eve of COVID, February 20th, and we were the largest investor. I shouldn't say we bought it, but on February 25th, 2020, it was acquired for 7.1 million, half debt, half equity, and they got an offer 9.5 million a week later. And I pleaded with my operating partner to sell it. I'm like, look, COVID could kill us all. We don't know what's going to happen. Why don't you sell it and take would have been a 67% profit, I think, on the equity in a week. And he said, nope, it's going to be worth 13 million in 3 years. You'll see. Well, he got an offer of 15 million on it later that year, and after making several tweaks to it, and
Jeez.
and sold it for a 347% IRR on the equity.
That's
Um,
ridiculous.
and the key there, Gabe, was not because he was a great operator. He was great at finding deals. This lady who owned this had not even visited the park in years, if ever.
Mm,
And it was an institutional sized park.
yeah.
And that's the key.
Yeah. I mean, you always make money on your buy, that is for certain. So I want to get into both mobile home RV and self storage. Let's take mobile home first. You said, I mean, you find most or you get most of your return on the find. So how are you guys going out there and finding these deals?
Yeah, so we have four operating partners in the mobile home park space, and they are finding deals. The most effective of them, it has a bullpen of 8 people sitting in a
Mm,
large office
cold
in
calling.
cubicles, and they're calling, texting, voicemailing, and emailing, thousands, literally over 1,000 mom and pop operators a week. They're all 8 of them are working full time doing that. and they're cycling through, let's say, of the 40,000 or so mobile home parks out there, they're cycling through maybe 20, maybe 30,000 of them every year, maybe twice. And what that means, Gabe, is that it's sort of like that ad you get for windows or roof. You know, those little ads you get in the mail. You're like, why do I get these? But the day you need windows and then that shows up, well, they're there. And that's what happens over and over. They started contacting a guy who was 88 years old in near Kalamazoo, Michigan, I think. And they contacted him 3 to 4 times a year for 7 years. And when he was 95, he finally said, "Yeah, I'm ready to sell now," and sold them. In fact, he said, "I'm ready to sell. You made me an offer 2 or 3 years ago. Will you still pay me that much?" And of
Oh,
course,
wow.
the answer was, "No, that's
Abs-
not enough." And he said, "Yeah, it's enough for me. I'll take it," because they
Wow.
had built a relationship.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, 7 years, that is crazy. I think my longest, I think I followed up with a deal, it was like 2.5 years or something like that. But still,
Yeah,
I mean, that's where the money is made, is just you get them in your database and then you don't let them leave until they either tell you don't ever contact me again or you get a deal done.
right.
Um, so yeah, that's great to hear. So what are you guys on the mobile home RV side? What are you guys looking for? Like, what's your criteria?
Yeah, so mobile home parks, generally, our operating partners are looking for poorly managed parks. The last deal we did is we're investing about 9 million in equity. The total equity raise is probably 12 or 13 million. Like I said, we're bringing nine of it, and then the rest is seller financed
Mm,
at 42% loan to cost, 4.5% interest rate,
four and a
interest
half
only for
percent.
five
Wow, that's
years.
great.
I know, it's crazy. And there's about 50% park owned homes. And so by converting, and this operator is a master at converting those park owned to tenant owned homes. And anybody who knows mobile home parks knows that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
What,
he'll,
real quick on that, do you guys, so when you guys have park-owned homes, how are you offering on those homes? Are you valuing the homes, like how are you valuing the actual home itself? Is it a
yeah.
gross rent
Yeah,
multiplier
let's
or?
quickly back up. So, in commercial real estate, your audience probably knows this, so I'll just be brief. But the value is the net operating income divided by the cap rate. Well,
Mm,
that value, when these are appraised by banks or others, that value only applies to the lot rent, not the mobile home itself rent. And so that value, the value of the mobile homes are just tacked on individually by value of the house. So it's,
mm,
let's say 10,000, 20,000 per mobile home, if you want to call it that. Um, and so that's just tacked on to the income from the lot rent. Well, if you can convert all those mobile homes to tenant owned homes, number one, those tenants will be responsible for the maintenance. Number two, now they become seriously interested in keeping it upgraded, keeping it maintained, keeping it nicer, and extremely unlikely to leave. If they've got a $20,000, $50,000 mobile home there, for them to fall behind on their rent and get kicked out and leave their mobile home behind or have to spend 7,000 to move it, it's not appealing. So there's so many reasons. The value of that park that's 50% park owned homes, by taking the lot rent up 35% just to get it to the very, very bottom of the market range. And then by converting most of those homes, the value of that park skyrockets, probably almost doubles over about 4 years.
yeah. So, but going back to the home itself, so you apply a capitalization rate to the net operating income, which is the site rent only. But
Right.
for the home itself, are you guys doing a gross rent multiplier, or are you guys like
No.
using a tool to value the home? Because you
Yeah.
gotta.
So, yeah, full disclosure here. We work with four different operators. Out of our 25 operators, four of them do mobile home parks, and they all do it differently.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I'd say the most common way that I hear is they just value the home itself.
Okay. So they use like a JD Power or something like that, and just have
Yeah,
a
I mean, if
tool
it's a
that kind of
fifty
spits out in the.
thousand, if it's a $50,000 5-year-old home, they just say 50, And if
Yeah.
it's a $5,000 in 1978 Fleetwood, then so be it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I've always struggled valuing the homes themselves because I usually just use a gross rent multiplier, but then that doesn't really give, that doesn't take into account the age of the home usually. So if if it's a brand new home, you should be giving more versus a really old one. And
Right.
so, yeah, I've always been curious to hear how people are valuing the actual, park-owned homes.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about storage. Storage is one of my other favorite asset classes. So when did you guys get into it, and why did you choose storage when you first got?
I was sitting right over here, and in February of 2018, somebody called me. It seemed to be a call from a prospective investor in my multifamily um, deal. And he said, actually, I don't want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about why I just pivoted from multifamily to self storage. Are you interested? And here, if you could have seen my face, I said, yeah. It was on a call, and I was like, no. Anyway, he laid out the case for self storage over the next half hour, which prompted me to spend 2.5 hours with him again on another call, and then make a visit a few weeks later to their site in Atlanta. And I was completely blown away by all the compelling statistics about self storage. I mean, one that stood out right away is if I'm paying $1,000 rent and somebody raises my rent by 15%, I might leave rather than pay an extra $150 a month for that, for that apartment. But if I'm paying $100 a month for a self storage unit and you raise it by 15%, I might grumble, but I think, I got a month to month lease. I'm going to take a vacation week soon, go clean that unit out, and I can leave there. It's only an extra 15 a month. It's not like I'm going to spend a weekend, get a U-Haul, get my buddies together to move my junk out and move it down the street to another unit to save 15 bucks, and they could raise it next month too. And there were so many other compelling things, especially the value adds, Gabe. I mean, think people who don't know this, some of the self storage facilities will sell and they'll say stuff like this. Like the owner might say, yeah, I've got 6 acres out back I never had any use for. And of course, the professional operator thinks, wait a minute, I can gravel or pave that and lease it for industrial storage, for contractors, for boat and RV storage. I can
Hmm.
build more units if it means I should. The professional operator thinks I can add U-Haul and maybe get 3,000 extra dollars a month in my
Oof, don't talk to me
NOI.
about U-Haul. We're
I
kind
can
of
put a
angry at U-Haul right now.
billboard on the front. I can put a cell tower out in back. I can add a propane filling station. I can add an ATM. I can sell locks, boxes, tape, and scissors. There's so many value adds.
Yeah. So you mentioned U-Haul, and I am curious your guys' experience with them. So one of our locations, we started a U-Haul, neighborhood dealer out of the
Yeah.
location, and we haven't figured out a profitable how to make it more profitable than that, or just how to make money out of it.
Yeah.
We have money coming in, but it's so slow,
Yeah.
and it's almost negligible to the point where it's like, um, I just don't see why people are so hyped about getting U-Haul into their facility. Obviously, this matters based on where it is. If you're like downtown
Yeah.
in a major city, I'm sure you get a lot more rentals. But
Yeah.
yeah, what's your guys'
Gabe,
experience with
Gabe, I've
U-Haul?
heard of people making $500 a month and it not being worth it. And I literally, I have never confirmed this, but I heard of somebody in Blacksburg or Christiansburg, Virginia, that has a really unique location making like 15,000 a month.
Yeah,
And I generally hear 3 to 5,000 is, in the top half of the range for most people. But I don't have an answer for that. I gotta believe it's just location and
yeah,
competition.
that's what I think too. That this location that we put it in, it was we're on a main thoroughfare in Indianapolis, and everybody was saying it's the best location to have a U-Haul, and we just could not whack it. Maybe we gotta rethink that one. But it's interesting that you guys, so 3 to 5,000 is kind of the average that you guys are seeing from adding
That's what I
U-Haul
hear
to
a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, again, we're not an operator. We work with three operators of self storage, and
Hmm.
they do all the nuts and bolts. So I knew enough to write a book about it, but not enough to run a facility.
That's fair enough. Um, so one thing that is of concern on the self-storage side, at least for me, is that is places being overbuilt. The net rentable per capita is really high, especially, I like to look buy in Texas, and most of the cities in Texas, there are self-storage facilities going up everywhere, and it
Yeah,
just doesn't make sense in terms of the population that these cities,
yeah.
contain. So what is your thoughts on oversupply and the industry in general?
Yeah, we've made some of our very best deals in out of the way locations, Gabe, and we
Hmm.
like that. I think that kind of aligns again with the Buffett mindset of finding intrinsic value. Who would have thought that a Beeville, Texas, population 12,000,
We actually, I own a facility or some place in Beeville. That's
do
funny.
you? Is it
Yeah.
607 units by any chance?
No, no, no. This is the RV park.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Beeville, Texas, who would have thought that that 600 unit self storage that was run into the ground by five feuding siblings after their parents died would have been acquired for 2.4 million and then sold a year and a half later for 4.6 million.
Wow.
But even more crazy, Ishpeming, Michigan, population like 2,000, 160,000 square foot facility, which again, who would have ever thought that would have worked? It's extremely profitable. And so my answer would be, look
160,000 square
for,
feet. That's a
what's
massive
that?
facility. That is a huge facility,
I
160,000
know.
square feet.
I know. I think that includes all the outdoor parking, our boat and RV parking and everything, but still, um, it's crazy to think that that would be so profitable. I can take you to Nashville and drive you all around and show you all the reasons it's overbuilt. But I
Hmm.
could take you 25 minutes south of Nashville to, I think it's Bellevue or Belleville. I think they're both there, and show you why it's undersupplied because of regulations that have kept self storage out, and a great place to be an operator there. So it's very, very neighborhood centric. You can't say Nashville's overbuilt, but you could say that a certain part of Nashville certainly is.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys are looking more in the tertiary markets. You're looking outside of major metros.
Yeah.
I've actually had two of my best facilities are in the middle of nowhere in Texas, out just west of DFW. These towns are like, I don't know, a couple thousand people, but
Yeah.
they work really well because they're
Yeah.
on the highway connecting DFW to whatever the next major city is, and
Yeah.
yeah, those kind of facilities, and I got them, seller financed. It was an old
Nice.
man who he owned both of them, and he was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. He was the one picking up the phone, but he didn't ever pick up the phone, and so they were like 10% occupied, and yeah, they were great deals.
Yeah.
So those
Wow.
small,
10%. That's a record. I've never heard that yet.
yeah, he wasn't doing anything. He had bought these facilities a long time ago. He didn't actually run them, and he I called him about them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. Here's a number. Let's get it done." And I was like,
Quick
"But
side story. I was in Fairbanks, Alaska, looking at a mobile home park that I actually flipped. This is a funny story. The guy bought a sand and gravel operation with a huge lake that had been created, of course, by the sand and gravel. And by the way, it happened to have 210, yeah, 210 mobile home park sites around half of the lake. And he didn't
nice,
want those. So he sold it for what turned out to be a 25% cap rate. And I
wow,
ended up acquiring that mobile home park myself. I owned it for 5 minutes and sold it to another larger operator. But while I was there, the point of the story, that's a great story because I sold it to him for like a 15% cap rate. We both got a good deal.
that's
Um,
awesome."
but across the street, there was a rundown self storage facility. Gabe, the phone number on it, I couldn't help it. I had to call it. And the voicemail said this: Hey, you've reached Susie's Mobile Massage. I'm probably out giving massages somewhere in rural Alaska. I'll answer your voicemail within a week if I get around to it. That was the voicemail. I thought, oh, I dialed the wrong number. No, that was the self storage voicemail. Wouldn't that have been a great one to acquire?
Yeah, those rundown facilities, those are the gems. Whenever I drive, if I'm driving somewhere or I'm traveling somewhere, I always try to find those gems and just call them when I'm driving to see if I can get a
Yeah.
deal done. Haven't got a deal yet that way, but one of these days I know it'll happen.
Yeah, well, we've been bashing on multifamily earlier. Let's just compare what we just said the last 12 minutes or so compared to multifamily, where there's hundreds of people trained by gurus chasing the same multifamily deals, and almost all of them are just overpriced, picked over, and they're so popular. It's a great place to avoid.
Yeah, well, and so much more could go wrong with. I mean, I used to flip houses, and there's so many things in the walls that you don't know. You just don't know. You have to open the
Right?
walls in order to find the issues, and so
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I like mobile home parks, RV park, self storage is that there's very few things in terms of the actual capex that you need that can go
Right.
wrong.
Yeah, so true.
All right, well, I just took a peek at the clock. It looks like we have run it down, so it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
All right, let's go.
All right, it starts with education. Could be any form. Could be a conference you've been to, mentorship program you've been a part of, book you've read, movie you've seen, anything. I need two recommendations: one for general life wisdom, and then one for real estate.
For real estate, I actually, after doing some commercial real estate, I mentioned in 2011, I didn't mention that in 2014, I spent $25,000 with a mentor that taught me everything about real estate syndication. And they were specifically in the multifamily arena, and that was priceless education. That was so much more valuable than anything else I've ever done in that arena. In the personal side, that's a tough question. I've done a lot of things, but I'll mention. I know you want to ask about a book. My favorite book is Larry Crabb, Crabb, Dr. Larry Crabb, Shattered Dreams. And I
Hmm.
learned so much from Larry about manhood, about being a great husband, father, and about loss and pain and the role of pain. I mean, I think I told you, I may have told you that I had a podcast for 4 years called How to Lose Money. And basically, it was about taking the pain and loss of business deals that went bad and multiplying, turning that into success. And
Hmm.
Shattered Dreams taught me so much about that in my personal life as well from Dr. Larry Crabb.
Nice. I love getting new recommendations. No one has mentioned that one, so I might have to pick that one up. Shattered Dreams. And you said Dr. Larry Crabb?
Yeah, Crabb, Crabb. And then as far as my favorite business book, it's got to be by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And I know you've heard it 100 times. It's called The One Thing,
Yep.
which taught me the importance of focus.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. I read that a long time ago, but I like the idea because it's so easy to get distracted and get the shiny object syndrome and split your focus here and there, work on this business, then the next one.
Yeah,
But if you can just focus on that one thing that matters, that's what gets the needle moving.
right.
All right, next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Paul who was just getting started so many years ago. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Yeah, Warren Buffett talks about getting a circle of competence. He says it doesn't matter how big the circle is, what matters is that you stay inside it. And he and
Mm.
Charlie Munger have spent decades saying no to one thing, one great thing after the other. Warren Buffett was ridiculed in 1999 for not jumping on the tech bubble bandwagon, and he
Hmm.
stood up in front of a bunch of his billionaire friends, including a bunch of tech billionaires, and said, I know you guys are making fun of me. You think I'm 69 and over the hill, but I'm not. He said, I actually would rather invest in Wrigley's gum than I would in your tech stocks because I know how people will be chewing gum in a decade. I have no idea where the internet will be. And of course, a year and a half later, the tech bubble burst, and he was right yet again. And so, my advice to my younger self would be learn one or two things really, really well and just stay focused on that. Don't get spooked by shiny objects and chasing them. I I've lost millions and millions of dollars in potential wealth by chasing shiny objects.
That's one of the things that I struggle with the most is just stay in the course. You know, find your zone of genius, find the thing that you're good at, and then just keep going down that line.
Yeah.
You know, mobile home RV, self storage. That is what I do. But so often, you know, I want to get into industrial. I want to flip
Yeah.
land. I want to, you know, buy houses, short term rentals, all the cool things you can do in real estate. But
Yeah.
it really comes, you know, expertise comes with doing the same thing over and over and over again. So that is good advice.
It's so true, Gabe. And I'll tell you, it's better to hit singles and doubles in your area of expertise than ever swing for the fences anywhere else.
100%. All right, next question is about the US. It's a big place. There is a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
I'm going to cop out on you here, Gabe. Our company invests in like 45 states, and we are actually only averse to investing in California. So I'd say everywhere but California. But seriously, we are obsessed with getting the very, very best operators with the
Yeah,
best team, with the best products, and again, self-storage, mobile home parks, RV parks, and and then letting them choose the geography.
nice. Yeah, I'm the same way. I am not. I don't really focus in on a specific area. I just look for the deal. But that's funny that you say no California whatsoever. Poor California. But there's a lot not going for them. The legislation, the fires, all the stuff.
I know.
All right, going to the next question. This is about lessons learned. Not every deal that we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, many times things go wrong, and that is when we get to learn a lesson. So, go back to a deal that went a little sideways for you. What was the lesson you pulled from it?
Yeah, my mentor said, and this is back in the multifamily days, don't buy anything before 1978 and ideally the mid 80s. And going back to when I said, you know, there were so many people competing for deals and so many people overpaying, believing trees would grow to the sky and all that stuff. We got desperate once and we jumped on a 1962 apartment complex, and the number of, you know, maintenance issues we had with that was very high compared
Mm,
to, you know, let's say an 80s built apartment. And so my lesson there was listen to your mentors. um, don't buy, you know, very old apartments. And there were so many other lessons, but if I have to stay short, that's a good one.
perfect. I love it. All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you, and then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah, they can find me at my website, Wellings, Wellings, wellingscapital.com. And if they throw slash resources on there, wellingscapital.com slash resources, they'll get a free special report on mobile home park investing, or another one on self storage, another one on RV parks, or access to either of my two commercial real estate books.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. In there, you can find Paul's links. All right, Paul, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Gabe, it's great to be here. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right.